The first of these transformative tools is, as we speak, we create. There's this realization that the language we use, we quite literally think in words and we speak in language, and then that has a direct impact on our actions, behavior, our habits, and it transforms the world around us. And that can be positive or negative. And so often, it's the narratives we tell ourselves, our stories that we repeat, how we relate to issues in our lives and how we tell that story. That kind of decides what the path of our future is going to be in the now. We've all been around people who have been a bit like downers with their language and their mood. And of course, if you're in a tough spot, it's difficult to start thinking in positive words. However, realizing and placing focus on that, it quite literally gives you an opportunity to be the author of changing that story.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really important to actually, firstly, it's awareness to see that we're even doing that. So from this perspective, it's like we're constantly in trance. We're trancing ourselves. So we're trancing ourselves in our language. We're trancing ourselves in how we're speaking. We're trancing ourselves in the self-talk. We're trancing ourselves with what other people are saying. So we're in this constant entrancement through our lives, and we don't realize it.
We don't realize it. Like the ancients knew this. I mean, look, ancients, their magic was done with spells, right? Yeah. And we can roll our eyes at that all we want. But then we also have mantras. And you have these catchphrases and things that people will say before they go into battle or go into compete, and they'll read themselves these things. I tried something last year. I kind of got into this about a year ago, which is like, I've got a bunch of I ams, and I would say these twice every morning. And I've had a little break from it, and I'm looking at jumping back into that soon, just so I can really see the difference. But it's like having these lists of I am this, I am that, I am stuff that people maybe won't tell you, and it's good to be able to remind yourself of these things. And maybe some of them don't quite feel true yet, but
fake it till you make it.
100% until you become it, exactly. So yeah, it's like the language, the ability to deconstruct a reality into language, whether we're going to talk about reality as a simulation, which would just be code, but ultimately everything that we experience, our senses, our smells, sights, the beautiful view, the sound of these waves lapping up onto the rocks, all of this is just sensory perception. It's just electrochemical signals that are just happening in our brain, and we interpret this as our reality, when in realness, what you are and who you are and how you are and what you look like is quite different depending on the senses that you're using to look at it. If we look at you through an infrared camera or ultraviolet, things are going to be different, and we've got our limited spectrum that we're able to see. And then this kind of concept also maps onto our perception in the sense of how we digest information, how we process things, which is all still language-based. What language moments have you uncovered? Have you had anything where like a word has been a trigger for someone in a positive or negative? Or?
Yeah. So personally, what I got to realise once I started doing this work on myself was the language, a lot of the time for me, was worst-case scenario stuff. So it was talking to myself as if the worst thing was about to happen in many cases. So I didn't realise that, right? And I'd learnt that in childhood. So I'd heard adults around me being their worst case, and that's what I took on. So it was
You're
really
prepared for the worst constantly.
Yeah, so
but
it helped. It made me a great risk manager, right? But ultimately,
Okay.
it wasn't serving in a lot of ways as well.
Because you have to take risks as well as manage them.
Sure.
Yeah, so if you're so aware of the worst case, then you're not going to take that step. But then you took a big step and you moved here.
Yeah. Yeah, and started discovering these thought patterns. So that was the beauty of it. So yeah, it's absolute. So I think, the main thing to really realise is that everything we're saying to ourselves is construct. It's all constructed. So once we can really see that, why wouldn't we make it a more positive construction than the negative one?
100%. There's this like risk of falling into like a world that's just your own little bubble. But I'm also like a fan of setting the frame. And understanding that you can choose how you interpret information and what that information means. So like information is everywhere, every single part of us. Like I've explained this to myself over and over, and I try sharing this knowledge that whether it be like even DNA is just code. It is just little ones and zeros, really. It's just yeses and nos, and somehow all of that information, that language, that communication DNA is like software that is able to write its own hardware, create its own hardware. Like a seed becomes the tree, the blueprint becomes the skyscraper. So the information is there. And if we're beginning with the information, the idea, then surely we'd want a healthier seed, a more complete blueprint, and then the reality begins to unfold from that.
Exactly. And how funny is it that we compare ourselves to a computer? That's what I love, these analogies.
We do.
Like, we're just like a computer. We need updating as well, rather than the computer being like us, because ultimately humans invented the computer. We're still comparing.
Well, we make things in our image, right? You know, there's the classic idea that God made man in his image. Or did we make God in our image? And what is the machine in relation to this? Are we eventually going to be generating machines that are in our image, that think and feel and able to compute like us? Of course, they're going to be a lot quicker.
Robots.
They're coming.
The way, so we take the best of a person and we put that into a robot. So then we've got the best of the robot to teach us all.
Well, it's the highlight reel, right? And this is it, like this understanding of a simulation. If we were living in some simulated linguistic code, if that's what reality was, then base reality would be less interesting. It wouldn't be as fun, because what you do with any, if you look at a movie, the movie is so much more interesting than the process that went into the movie, months and months of retakes and shoots and, you know, makeup corrections and all of this. Whereas you get this condensed thing. And then you look at the trailer for the movie, even more, all the action condensed into 2 minutes, okay?
It's like our lives on Facebook.
It
right?
is.
Instagram.
Yeah, exactly. Carefully curated version of our reality.
Only the best bit.
So we can, as we speak, we create, and I've stolen that concept from the magic word we've all grown to love and understand, abracadabra. Abracadabra, 2,000-year-old magic word that translates to, as I speak, I create. The words we utter create the reality in which we live. And there's really nothing more true that I've discovered. It was a penny drop moment. You're like, okay, right. I can be the author, you can be the leader, we can be the pilot. And if you begin to choose that with the language in which you think and speak, then you get to create your own adventure and maybe your own ending, who knows?
Free yourself, right, ultimately.
Free yourself from those shackles, yeah. Otherwise you're just, what do they say, if you're not the main character, if you're not choosing that, you're going to be some other character in someone else's story. So yeah, pursue that authorship and write your own. Boom.
Yes.
As we speak, we create. Nailed it. Transformative tool number 2. The cave you fear holds the treasure you seek. Now that's a quote from Joseph Campbell, who he wrote Hero with 1,000 Faces, creating this idea of the hero monolith, the story, the journey that every hero takes from the beginning of time, whether it be Harry Potter or like the Hunger Games or Star Wars, all of these stories we tell ourselves, the same journey happens. And it is this character who is plunged they plunge themselves into the abyss, basically. They pluck themselves out of the normal, the regular, the rat race, the default setting, and they choose to enter into the unknown, right? And that can be scary, of course, like the cave we fear. Though what this concept, at least for me, it has two sides to it. So one of them is going into the cave you fear within yourself, things that you're scared of addressing, things that you're scared of doing. And these could be something that happened in your past. It could be something that has recurred over time. And you push it under the rug rather than dealing with it and diving in, because it's painful, understandable. And this is what people go to therapy for. This is what people sort of work on themselves, mindfulness, people just running, fighting in the gym, whatever it is to try and overcome these things. But I found that more you dive into that, there can be some blessings that come from it. The other side to it is exploring things outside of your comfort zone. So we can come back to that. So when it comes to the cave you fear, how have you found with clients that diving into that difficult part for them to overcome these hang-ups? I mean,
It's the gold, right? The breaking down before we break through. And I think the really important thing is to know is if we're not going there, it's still fucking us anyway. So as we're reacting every day in traffic, whether we're having arguments, however we're
so it's coming through.
It's coming through anyway.
Right.
So it's like it's there with you anyway. So those people that really fear going into the cave, it's like you're doing it anyway. And the gold in it is if you allow yourself that hardship, because if it ain't uncomfortable, you're not developing.
Right.
So if you allow yourself to get into that, the hardness, the absolute pain of it, there's a whole lot of
That's where you can extract that alchemy, that's
Otherwise, you're just going to live in that pain, just sort of simmering away, getting angry and not really knowing why.
Why am
I?
That's
taking responsibility for self.
So a big part of this is ownership. Hey, the cave you fear, for a lot of it is owning your setbacks and understanding that it's like if someone throws a rock at you, like that's your rock now. You could whinge about the rock all you want, or you can use that to be, I don't know, that can be the first stone in the foundation for the new you, right? So it's taking those ideas, and this is what alchemy originally was. We talk about alchemy as transforming lead into gold, and the reality of it is turning a lead situation into a golden one. Taking something difficult like a past trauma, a difficult family life, perhaps you've been deported, perhaps your husband left you, whatever these things happen to be, you lost a loved one. And these become very difficult topics for us to dive into, real sensitive things for us to explore, and understandably so, right? It's sore, it's an open wound that hasn't healed fully. Though we know you kind of got to tend to a wound to heal it. If you've got an injury, you don't just rest it completely. I mean, if you want it to return to its full potential, you need to work through that. You need to work on that.
Absolutely. And the key thing is without judgment. And that's the piece. If people can really go into it and not judge themselves for it, or at least watch the judgments at first, that's the really important stuff. Because whilst we're judging ourselves, that's what blocks the healing.
That's so true. Yeah, the self-judgment and then the stigma surrounding whatever the topic is, and you've got so many barriers in the way of being able to explore it. I think this is where things like the experimental research that's being done by MAPS, the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, and they've been doing studies with MDMA and using this for therapy, and someone will take half of a party dose of MDMA with a trained therapist, and then through questioning, just that small amount will enable them to access and work on those topics without judgment, without the pain of the trauma. And it's like going in to fix and twiddle and tweak, and people are going home after being diagnosed with PTSD for years. They're going home sometimes after one session. There's like an 86% success rate for people to go home cured. And by cured, I mean they no longer meet the criteria for having PTSD.
And that's the beautiful part about those, those experiences. And what I always say is, whatever we're medicating ourselves with, do it until you don't need to anymore. Because all of your potential is here. It's just, are we brave enough to allow ourselves to go there without the medication? So at some point, the potential is to be able to access all of those parts of us from a natural state, right? So
that is true. And you talk about bravery, and courage is the perfect transition here for the other side of this coin, which is expanding your experience by going into caves that you fear because they are unknown to you. So rather than it being a cave you fear that you're kind of aware of that cave, there's a dragon in there, I don't want to go near it. How about the cave that you haven't explored yet? Whether it's wanting to jump out of a plane, or whether it's wanting to do public speaking, or pose as a life model, whatever it is that's going to be so far out of your zone. But when we kind of step into those unknown terrains, those yet uncharted areas of our experience, that's what forces us to grow. So I found that you take on the responsibility, you have to become more than what you are in order to achieve, in order to take on board these new experiences. And I find that courage is so often rewarded. Terence McKenna, one of my favorite thinkers, he said that it is nature loves courage, and it will show you that it loves courage by removing impossible obstacles. And if you dream the impossible dream, life will not grind you under, it will lift you up and you have to hurl yourself into the abyss to discover that is a feather bed. And it's so true.
And a big part of that is that really leaning into that. So whether it's anxiety, we're calling it, whether it's excitement, it's leaning into that energy in the body, that thing that we kind of want to get away from, right? The more that we can see that as actually our potential, you don't get anxious about something that's not possible for you, you know? You could say to someone, imagine standing up in front of this whole room right now, and they're probably going to get a little bit anxious if they haven't done it before. Tell them to imagine going into space, they're probably not going to get anxious because that's not their potential in that moment.
It doesn't seem like a realistic challenge.
No.
So that's interesting. So we're fearing because we know that it is a potential. And this comes back to the risk management that you were talking about, right? I'm so aware that that could happen, and it might not be good because I feel like I'm not ready. So I'm going to steer clear of that.
Big one.
Whereas we find that we lean into it, and like he says, life will not grind you under, it will lift you up if you have the courage to enter the cave you fear and extract that treasure.
And I would say as well in that as well, it's things like putting yourself in the face of people that you feel really uncomfortable around. So we might say, oh, I just want to be around like-minded people. But if you can see yourself as that person that really triggers you the most, then there's your potential again. If they're pissing you off, if they're making you angry, it's you you're seeing, right? And that's the ultimate. It's the Carl Jung work. It's the shadow work.
Oh no! I thought it was them who are so annoying. It's me, isn't it? It's me.
It's me.
Oh.
And it works both ways. It's the beauty that we see in people, and the most, you know, stuff that makes us most angry. It's all of that's our potential.
It's a reflection.
Moment. So it's the good and the bad. The thing that you most, you know, are most inspired by someone. It's the parts of you that you're not allowing yourself to see. That's your potential, as well as the not so good stuff. So it's all there for us. Anything that triggers in you, it's you. It's your potential.
Which is a good point, part, because it means that you can't be expected to tweak someone else, but you can tweak yourself. You can adjust yourself. You can fix yourself. Liberating stuff. I named this the squirm. I gave myself this idea, the squirm. And it was this, I had a photo shoot once, went out and did an amazing film sort of session with a friend, but when I got the photos back, I was so jarred by how I looked in the image compared to how I view myself. There was this huge disconnect. And I remember I was looking on big iPad screen, a HD retina display of my eye bags and scars and grey hairs and wrinkles. I was like, and I felt this discomfort. And I started like squirming in discomfort, and I like, my cat was there. I was like, Ninja, what is this squirm? The squirm is so real. And I realized by naming it, I was able to disarm it. I took away its power by giving it this name, and then realized that it's just an experience within me, and that's a cave that perhaps we fear. Certainly I do, like that discomfort. And anyone who's gone there and had to edit videos of themselves and watching something on repeat for hours on end, you notice, why did I say so 6 times? Why did I begin every sentence with okay? And you begin to then start eliminating these things later. You get that feedback. But the squirm.
And sometimes it takes a few goes at watching it, in my experience, until there's a comfort in being able to watch it. But first, squirm can,
And it's like a theme park. This was the example. So if you look at a theme park, if you was to kidnap someone, take them, strap them into the machinery, hurl them through the air on this roller coaster, they would be traumatized. But we pay to get in. We queue to enter the haunted house, the Hall of Mirrors, the roller coaster that builds suspense before hurling us into the abyss. And then we enjoy, we take something from that fear, from that exhilaration, anxiety, and we survived it, and we go home high on a buzz from it, and we're like, we've leveled up as a human through this adventure. So why can't we do that with the cave that we fear? Maybe we can, and maybe that's the goal.
Exactly. What's stopping us?
Past traumas, lean into them. Goals that seem too unachievable, go for it. Don't run into that cave, bring your sword with you, slay that dragon.
So fear of failure would be a big one, right? People don't want to start things because they fear of failure. So rather than seeing it as failure,
Feedback.
Feedback. NLP 101.
That's how you don't do it. Right, I get it. That's what we don't do. Nailed it.
Yeah.
The cave you fear holds the treasure you seek. Transformative tool. Transformative tool number 3. It's better to be a warrior in the garden than a gardener in the war. Now, that's a Sun Tzu quote. He wrote The Art of War. And I love this. I love this quote. What I get from it is a reminder to not be pathetic, okay? And there's this lovely idea that a harmless person is not a good person. A good person is someone who is capable of causing great harm and chooses wisely not to do so. So that's it, being a warrior in the garden rather than a gardener in the war. You look at a bunny rabbit and it's cute, but it's also pathetic. It can't do much for itself. It's quiet, can't fend for itself. It's this meek, feeble little thing. Now, for us, sentient beings, consciously wandering around the world with our ability to do everything from dig down for oil to use that same fuel to rocket us to space, we need to toughen up sometimes. And we got in this weird situation in 2021 now where you almost feel awkward about telling someone to man up, right? It's like, oh, I'm triggered. How dare you say that? But what we mean by that is like, find that power within you. Like, look, our ancestors trekked across desert plains, snow, glacier, like the Ice Age. They survived all of these times without heating, without the technology that we have now, without the communication. And they did that just so that we can sit here on these camp chairs right now. Yeah, meanwhile, I might read an article that will ruin my day, or, you know, like someone doesn't pull away in time at a traffic light and you miss your go, and that can like throw you off. Doesn't sound like a warrior mentality when that happens. What is have there been any fundamental shifts for you in like learning strength, learning that mindset?
So ultimately, it's to see the weakness and the strength. So the two exist on the same.
Okay.
So we don't know strength without
Weakness.
knowing weakness, and we don't know weakness without knowing strength. So it's the same as we don't know night without day, we don't know light without dark. So it's really seeing that they both exist, you know, together. So the more that we can be okay with those moments of weakness, the stronger we become, right?
Right.
The more we try and suppress one side of it and only be the other, whether that's weak or strong, the more we're in struggle, because we're not giving ourselves permission moment to moment to be,
And
right?
experience both of those.
Because ultimately, once we're you know, we're good with both, and the polarity, the duality, it's just integration, and then we're just here being, doing, you know.
That's true. And I guess
every
like
moment.
it's the strength required to be vulnerable.
Yes,
as
exactly.
well.
And vulnerable may be seen as weak, right? So
Well, they said
see
that
the strength in the vulnerability.
one of the best senses of humour is I went away to hang out with some friends recently, and I've known these guys for like 10 years, and they're two of my best buddies, and we hadn't hung out in the same space together for a bit. And one of my favourite parts about it was I was the butt of the joke quite a lot. And for sure I dished it out too, you know, but it came back to me because these guys have known me long enough that they can do that. And it doesn't happen enough. And being able to like take that and laugh and realize it's a real nice thing to be able to remind yourself that don't take things so seriously. It is all just this absurd joke anyway. Let's just treat it as such. And yeah, like why would a warrior be so triggered over something so small? You can be like, that's okay, sure, let's see it for what it is, and it's not gonna harm me. But the things about strengthening yourself up for the journey of life, okay?
Yes.
So this doesn't have to just be physical. This is also emotional, spiritual, mental strength. Mental health is obviously such a focal point at the moment, and it's wonderful that now we can all be strong enough as a society to realize that mental health is a type of health that we should be putting focus in, because we weren't strong enough as a society to acknowledge that, you know. Go back 50 years, 60 years, the thought of anyone with a mental issue even in your family or something, it's such a taboo. It was so much stigma attached to that. And we're coming leaps and bounds.
Even the word anxiety up until a couple of years ago, it felt like even that was
a dirty word.
Yeah, honestly, I think COVID's been really actually, you know, beautiful for that in terms of people being, you know, permission to be anxious.
Now we've got an excuse. Everyone can share it because we're all in the same boat, so we can talk about that. Yeah, anxiety is a funny one. I hadn't really put a label on that feeling until recently, and only in the past year or so was I able to realize, oh, that sensation, that's anxiety. When people are telling me, oh, I've got anxiety, and I'm like, show me. Where is the anxiety? It's like Jerry Maguire. And they obviously, they can't, but it's this description, this sense, this feeling. And now being able to realize and like what that is. But ways that we can make ourselves more of a warrior in the garden instead of a gardener in the war. I mean, I do a combat training. I train every day if I can, so that's quite physically and literally taking this concept and running with it. And I love it because I just have this moment where when I'm there, I have to be present, right? And presence is an amazing transformative tool. If I'm not present, then I might get hit in the head. Sometimes I get hit in the head anyway, right? So I've got to be I've got to be on the ball. And then other things, people do like mindfulness, practicing meditation, yoga, surfing is a great one. These are things that are going to help build you into the person you're capable of being by making you strong in your mind, by having time for yourself to allow your mental hard drive to defragment and reorder itself. Like these are all important things. Close off those tabs and just have your browser fresh and ready. Mentally, physically, emotionally.
So lean into, again, it's leaning into the shit again, leaning into that, leaning into the vulnerability to strengthen you in
for sure. And acknowledging that you need to, that they're like polishing your mind through playing chess. That's great. You're learning the pitfalls and the potentials of a world in constant flux. Because things aren't going to play out the way you plan them to. So it's good to understand that if I want to be a warrior in this in this lifetime battle, because really it's what it is, you know, it's a lot easier for some of us than others, but ultimately this game of life is going to end you. And before it does, if you want to be a contender in that game, you've got to be tough, you've got to be strong, you've got to be worth.
Got to do the work.
Do the work, exactly. Got to hustle.
Do the work.
It's better to be a warrior in the garden than a gardener in the war. Transformative tool number 4. Install the update. Install the update. I can be in murder for this, quite literally. Would you like to restart your computer and install the update? No, I'm busy, okay? I know. But you must, and of course this isn't just about the software that you use, though it does relate into the tools that we use, you know. I remember kind of rejecting the update on a phone years and years ago, and when I finally did, I had all of these new emojis to use, right? All these different emojis. And until, and before that, I was getting these little alien heads through where my phone didn't know what the emoji was that I was being sent. And they're like, oh, that one's a unicorn with an ice cream cone. I'm like, what? What have you got? So, and then you finally download it. And then all of a sudden, you install the update and you've got access to these new tools. And I mean, we laugh at the emojis, but really they are symbolic meaning tokens. You send this little encapsulated mood in the form of a little picture, you know? So there's nothing redundant or nothing to roll your eyes at about those things, or roll eye emoji. So with that concept, downloading, installing the update, that can be, all right, we've had this chat. If neither of us take something home and install that into who we are and integrate that into how we are, then what have we done other than got a little bit too chilly in the breeze with this gorgeous view? So you must install the update, otherwise you have only learned it, you haven't realized it.
Absolutely, agree. And the analogy I like to use as well is like going to university 30 years ago and doing an IT degree, and you're still getting recognised for your IT degree, but you haven't actually done any qualification since then on IT. And I actually laugh because that's what happens in this world, right?
Yeah.
And there might be people that haven't got a degree that are actually, you know, teaching themselves this stuff, but you know, that person that's done that IT degree 30 years ago is still going to be more recognised potentially.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, it's like really seeing that, you know, once we've done any sort of work on ourselves, or whether we've, you know, trained in something, it's never the end, you know. There's always updates to be
Constant
done constantly.
updates.
It's not
That's
just
it.
do the course once and that's you for life. It's like the work's the work, and it's an absolute process.
It's really true, and it's this understanding that it is the pursuit of perfection that enables us to grow, not the perfection itself. So you're never going to get there.
Never.
You're never going to achieve perfection, and that's okay.
Yeah, totally.
Don't worry, like the Buddha had a quote, when you get there isn't any there.
Exactly.
Right?
That's death, right? That's the deathbed.
That's it.
Like,
Damn.
oh, no thinking now.
Game,
I'm free.
game over. Yeah, or if he's a Buddhist, he'd come back for another round. Hey, oh, here we go. And is this idea the difference between knowing and realizing? So to know is knowledge by acquaintance. We take the lessons and we learn. The information is taught to us and we learn it and we know it, and maybe we can tell people about it. But then there's knowledge by acquaintance. So knowledge by description is to know something. Knowledge by acquaintance is you become acquainted with that knowledge in a way that you have to go there to know there,
Yes.
right? Unless you've seen it and been it, then you don't truly know it. So you can hear these lessons. You can watch Safari on Nat Geo. I want to go there. I want to feel the breath of that tiger when I'm in this caged Jeep and they come up to the edge. Like, there's a difference, right? And the experience, this wonderful scene in Good Will Hunting where Robbie Williams. Robin, let me entertain you. So there was this lovely scene in Good Will Hunting when Robin Williams, he sat with Matt Damon's character and he was like, sure, you could, if I mentioned like this artist, you could list off all the paintings they told me, and if I mentioned this musician, you'd be able to tell me what year they were born and what they had for dinner that day, but you won't be able to tell me what it's like to look up at the Sistine ceiling. You won't be able to tell me what it smells like in there. And it's the difference between experiencing the things in life and taking those lessons and allowing them to affect us. So that's a big part of installing the update too.
Embodiment as well.
Embodiment.
You know, it's like the cognitive knowing to the embodied.
Yeah.
You know? It's kind of like we have to tell ourselves something enough times, like the fake it till you make, tell ourselves something enough times until we really, you know, get it.
Begin to embody it and know it, and you can rattle that one out. I remember, like in the combat sport I do, Krav Maga, we do a lot of sparring, a lot of like fighting in the cage. You know, and got our pads on, but it's cool. I remember the first time I was able to see a punch coming, and I blocked the punch. And I was like, whoa! Because I'd embodied the lessons to the point where I was able to be it and do it. And then I remember the first time I ducked under a punch. And then to add a counter to that, and these are things that you drill hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands of times over the years. But being able to apply them in the real world, there and then, that's when you realize, that's when you've realized it. That's it. I don't just know it, I realize.
Yeah, and that's the thing, it's like, when you've probably done that, it's like you didn't even have to think about it.
Unconscious
so
competence,
yeah.
right? I didn't even know that I knew how to do that.
And afterwards you're like, how the fuck did I do that? Because you were present to it. You know, it was there, it was in the system.
Sure. Yeah. I know. One more point on installing the update is also, I mean, this can be very much, it depends if you can afford to do these things or if you're in a position where you're able to. But like last year, I took a little bit of a gamble despite money being difficult at a certain time because of the pandemic and my line of work, it was illegal all of a sudden. And I started buying better tools. I bought an iPad Pro, a big investment that changed my world. I could not believe how I live without this thing. And it's so, and then a better phone when the new iPhone came out. And it was this idea that we build the tools and then the tools build us. And Abraham Maslow said, if all you have is a hammer, everything starts to look like a nail.
Yes.
And I don't just want to have a hammer, I want to have the toolkit. So I have the options to, so for that, installing the update meant taking the plunge and investing.
Yeah.
So I won't say buying new toys, it was investing in new tools. And I had the most successful year I've ever had in the end, from literally halfway through the year, just because I had this switch of understanding and attitude, and I started installing the updates.
Yeah.
So transformative tool, install the update. Transformative tool number 5, connects with the magic of being. Not the magic of my job, the magic of being. And I was told this in a journey that I had, a little experience I had, and during this experience I was reminded that my existence is miraculous, and I should carry that with me, and I should connect with the magic of being, not the magic of your job, the magic of your existence. Now, we're made of atoms that were forged in a furnace of dying stars, right? And we know this, sure, we hear it, we've seen memes about it. But if you wake up and look at yourself and then realize that, and then it's quite marvelous. And what does it matter? Like, I've got, there's a bill on the side I haven't tended to yet. Oh, gotta wait till I'm in the right mode to deal with that. Or, there's this other problem I've been pushing to the side. When you start realizing you're this miraculous magic being, you don't want to waste time. You start handling your business because you are empowered with the force of creation in some way. Have you felt that magic feeling?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the really key part here for me is really learning that we can go about trying to, find this enlightenment, find this magic, and it's really to know it's always here with us. It's already always here. There's no enlightenment, there's no bolt lightning out of the sky to come. It's literally, it's here. And the only thing that distracts us from what is already true about us is our thoughts,
right?
Our feelings, even that stuff that goes on in the body, we start identifying, and then we start having a conversation about what's going on in here, and we're on this constant loop. So it's like there's nothing to find. There's a clearing process to take place, clearing the thoughts, clearing the judgments, clearing the perfectionism, clearing all those those programs that are formed in childhood. And once we can, lifelong process, right, but clear that, then we really get to be on a more permanent, scale, more in the being. So in terms of the magic, I experience it now daily, in spurts, like just pure presence, like seeing the world like I've got glasses on,
right,
like
rose-colored glasses,
it's HD, yeah. And that's the beauty. The moment that the mind silences, the access that we have through our senses to see, to hear. I mean, I would start to hear things from across rooms, like slight movements of arms, and I'd be like, what's going on without having a chat to myself.
Yeah.
But that's taken years of work, right, already, and I'm only, spurts of
paying
this throughout my
attention to
days.
those magical details.
And this is like going back to what we were talking about earlier with drugs, with using any of those things, is experiences of that would have happened in the past at Burning Man or whatever, and now that happens without anything in the system at all. No alcohol, nothing is needed.
And you
it's
can
all
do that
just
without the help.
now.
You're talking about like your senses growing sharper. Was that the quote? The world is filled with magical things waiting for your senses to grow sharper. And then there's this other idea that even a blade of grass becomes a world in itself if it's given the proper attention. So it's like putting your focus and understanding and realizing that you can extract that magic from anything. Like when you carry that with you, that feeling, and I've had multiple times in my life where for a long time I've being able to wake up every day and feel that elation of being alive and being aware, I am alive, I am here, this is amazing, this is a miraculous moment, and I get to take myself on the journey I wish with the power infused within me. And I feel for people who have like a religious transformation where they have, they're born again, right? And like whether it's true or not, objectively, subjectively, that person has discovered the creator of the universe and the universe has got their back. So suspend your beliefs for a moment and let's just assume that the all-seeing, all-knowing, all-powerful God of the universe is real. And
you are that God.
And you are that, yeah.
Believe you're real, believe you're God, that's it. You know, 'cause that's the thing, when that mind silences, when there's no thinking going on, there is this sense of just nothing, right?
Yeah.
It's just here. We are, you know, and I do this quite a lot because I'm on Zoom calls a lot now. You know, and I have moments where I'm looking at myself and it's not even me that I'm looking at. It's this, you know, there's no thinking going on. It's like that's that and this is here, you know. So it's like we are God, we are the universe. You know, when people say the universe has brought me this, well, you brought it to yourself because you are the universe. Nothing is doing anything for you that you're not creating at the same time.
You're the universe expressing itself, yeah? Alan Watts said that you are something the universe is doing the way a wave is something the ocean is doing.
Exactly.
And there's really no difference. Transformative tool. Connect with the magic of being. Wow, I think we smashed that. So we've got five tools there. So as we speak, we create, you know, manifesting our reality through our words and our thoughts. The cave we fear holds the treasure we seek. Owning our setbacks, stepping out of our comfort zone to like on the hero's journey to expand our experience and grow as a human being. Be a warrior in the garden. It's better to be a warrior in the garden than a gardener in the war. Toughen up mentally, spiritually, physically, emotionally for the battle ahead. It's going to be a long journey and you want to be strong for it. Install the update. Install the update, take the lessons that you've learned and integrate them and embody them. And connect with the magic of being. You are a miraculous creature. Your existence alone is an absolute spectacle. Carry that with you and you'll achieve impossible things. I think it's a wrap. Nice. Awesome. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. That was great.